Welcome to the Wealthworthy Podcast. I'm Trisha.
Hi, I'm Darian.
Thank you for joining us. This week we wanted to talk about the idea that being broke is expensive. And we're using broke in the broad sense of the word, just when you are comparing to those who have much more than you. And the reality around this concept is just that the best deals go to those with access to capital. So if you have someone, or if you yourself has a good amount of cash stashed away, or if you have leverage that you've been building up and you're able to access cash, then it makes it a lot easier for you to negotiate the best deals for yourself. You're able to avoid fees that other people may be incurring on a regular basis. You're able to get access and early access as well to things that the average person may not be able to see. And so I just wanted to be clear and make sure that we're all aware of these pockets where people are able to take advantage of opportunities. So if you're not in a position where people are coming to you with investment opportunities, or they're not offering you free or like these pockets of opportunities where you can earn interest on your money, then it means that there is room for you to continue growing your own funds. There's room for you to continue strengthening your personal brands or your company's brands, whatever the case. But you really have to be aware of the fact that you're even paying some of these fees. Because sometimes we just know, like, hey, I have to pay this fee because I don't have, or I haven't hit this limit, and you go along with it because you're using the services. So you're like, okay, I'm using these services, so I have to pay a fee. Not realizing, or just putting into the back of your mind that there are a number of people who don't have to pay fees or don't have to worry about hitting certain tiers because they're already in the good graces. They already have a number of investments that they're doing with specific institutions. And this really applies to anything that we're looking at. So if we were talking about stocks, then we're talking about people who have invested large sums of money with an individual brokerage. So now they're thinking about how they're going to continue getting interest from the brokerage or getting gifts from the brokerage because they are investing so much money that the brokerage is just happy that they exist, let alone that they're spending money. They don't necessarily need them to spend money if they have access to use those investors' money, right? If we're talking about making a home purchase or making a purchase with the intent to invest it, right, as an investment. So if you're looking to be a landlord, or if you are making purchases for commercial property and you have lessees, like if someone's leasing your building or whatever the case, you are expecting that there's going to be some sort of return for you out of that deal, and there are certain costs that you don't expect to incur. And so just being mindful of those different situations where that may be the case can help you to figure out what you may need to do to lower the cost of fees that you're paying. So the plus side is that we have all these newer technologies that have come about that have wiped out or at least lowered the cost for certain transactions that we do regularly. So if you think about the way that things have operated in the past, if you didn't have the funds to open up bank accounts, you had to figure out how you were going to get access to your money. And a lot of times people would turn to payday loans or check cashing places so that they can get quick access to their money before they would be able to open up an account, right? Like it was easier to go to a check cashing place than open an account if you know that you didn't have enough money to meet the limits that were required. Now you can decide, like, hey, I'll use an online bank that doesn't doesn't have any limits, or I'll use a credit union that doesn't have the same kinds of limits. And on top of that, you have things like PayPal and Square that allow you to more easily access funds than you may have had access to in the past. So it's changing the way that we look at things, but there are still pockets where we are costing ourselves money by not recognizing, or even if you recognize it, right, not figuring out how to avoid paying fees or higher prices for things that the rich are able to get much more cheaply. So when you think about buying a house or something like that, if you can negotiate the best interest rates for yourself, then you're setting yourself up to pay less over the next couple of years. And then on top of that, if you're able to negotiate the best price on the house, then you also are going to save yourself money down the line, because now you don't have to worry about how much it's actually costing you to live in a certain area, or if you're making the investment for business purposes, how much it's costing you to get a good return on your investment. So just being mindful of that, like by doing things like making sure your credit is intact, or making sure you have funds available to put a good down payment, or just keeping some funds around so that you can show that you have access to capital. So a lot of times it's not necessarily about how much money you have in the bank, and sometimes it's just about whether or not you have access to the kind of money that you're looking for. So if you were buying a house on your own, for example, the bank wants to know that you're more likely to pay them back than not. So if you have a high propensity to pay back, then they're like, great, we want you to do business with us. But the ways to prove that that's the parts that they are trying to best understand. So you're trying to show them like, hey, I have good credit history because I buy things and I pay it back all the time. And like, even if it's on a small scale, I buy things and pay it back. So on a broader scale, now you're asking them to say, like, hey, I trust you to buy this and pay me back. And that's the relationship that they're expecting and wanting you to show that you can do. And so what happens on a large scale when you talk about huge investors investing millions in commercial properties or in properties that they plan to lease to other people, they might not have $30 million in the bank, but they have access to that kind of money, or some fraction of that money that makes a banker feel comfortable to loan them those funds. And the reality is they might not even have the money, or might not even be as likely to pay that back as somebody who is just really good with their funds. But for somebody to take a risk on you, they need to understand the kind of business person that you are, which is why we start out this conversation with what kind of personal brand you have to offer and how much cash you really have on hand. Because if you can't even save out of what you have right now, then it's harder for somebody to believe that you'll be able to carve out the kind of funds that it takes to do business with them. So for these purposes, I really just want to make sure that we get across that you have to figure out what is best for you to get that kind of trust from others, and to get the kind of negotiated rates and prices that will set you up for the future. So if you're looking to buy property, buying the lowest possible price that you can get in the neighborhood that you want is an example of just making sure that you get the best rates available to you, right? Like, so that would be a price example, and the rate portion of that would be you trying to negotiate the best rates with the bank. So avoiding the idea that just convenience alone is going to get you where you need to be. Like, you really have to shop around sometimes, and it takes time to shop around, but it will save you money in the long run. So really making sure that you look out for those type of things. And network, right? Like, sometimes just knowing the right people can help give you guidance that'll help position you more, or maybe they'll be willing to put in capital in something that you're interested in investing in. But whatever the case, just being able to speak to the right people can help save you money down the line, because if somebody knows how to do something already, then they can impart some of that knowledge on you. So I think that we just have to be mindful of those type of opportunities. And even when we talk about investing money in the stock market, right, like recognizing that like we have these companies again that are now offering up trades for free. We didn't have that in the past, and so that was something we always had to pay for. So if you are interested in investing, right, like looking for opportunities where companies are making those kind of offerings to people, or they're looking to change the way that we're doing things, they're disrupting industries, like what are companies doing that could possibly change the patterns that we have now and lower costs for people over time. So companies now that have been huge discussions include Lemonade and Snowflake, where they're in industries where they're looking to change the way that people react and do things, right? So for Lemonade, they're looking to change the way that we buy insurance and how much it costs and how we think about going about those purchases by like adding in a social component to it. So now people are more concerned about like, oh, is this corporation investing money in the community, or are they doing things that are helping organizations that I like and support? And so if you are looking at those type of opportunities, then it gives you a leg up when it comes time to invest and to continue growing your funds. So just looking for those opportunities where you can figure out how to save money, or if you're not personally looking at saving money, like you are understanding the type of companies that are out there that are saving people money or trying to change patterns on how we do things, right? So those are the two ways that you can really play it. You personally getting money out there, and you making sure that you invest in people, companies, and ideas that will get some kind of change in our behavior. So those are really the real areas that you have to watch for. But you do have to really recognize that it's a big deal for you to be paying fees and interest and higher prices for things that other people are getting so much more cheaply. Because like, I don't think that we always fathom it the way that we should. Like, we don't think about it as being as impactful as it is. But even talking about some of these stocks, I think that the best price is going to go to people who have money and have been approached early. So how can you become somebody who approaches it early? And that's going to be you saying, hey, I'm interested in this stock or this investment. I'm going to wait for the best possible price. So when the price dips, I'm going to get in. Or if you're looking at investing in something, same deal. There's a recession that's happening. Is this going to be advantageous to me? Can I hop in? Or I have more cash available now. How can I stretch this cash to get me the things that I want or need right now? And then the idea about your credit ratings, right? Like if you are able to get the best rates, like how can you make sure that you pay attention to and continue building your credit so that you can get the best rates and continue to show that you have some kind of propensity to pay back, so that you can keep getting larger loans without there being a huge risk to the companies or to you that you're not going to be able to pull off what you say you'll pull off. So just taking all those things to ponder on and think through and say, like, what can I do to really help lower the costs that I have control of? So some of it might be cooperative economics, getting a bunch of friends together or getting a bunch of investors together to pool money so that you can get better rates negotiated or better deals negotiated. Like whatever you have to do, just be aware, like, hey, if I pay $5 for this, but somebody is able to pay a quarter for it, like I gotta figure out how I can lower that cost. So let's just be mindful and pay attention to those details details, because in the end, those are the ones that matter and keep people earning while others are losing funds on fees and interests and what have you. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you again next week on Wealth Worthy. Bye.